Steve Rubis with another installment of Capital Markets Investor Relations in 2 minutes or less. This video is going to be longer than the typical 2 to 3 minutes because we're going to walk through a slide deck that illustrates some of the key trends that we've uncovered around the investor relations job market based on our job search for the 23-24 period. And our goal is to continue to update this data on a quarterly basis because I think there is a lot of interesting, intriguing trends for different IROs. So let's start with the key learnings, or what, if you don't watch the presentation, these are the things you need to take away. That for the 2-year average, my conversion rate from an application to a conversation for all levels of IR jobs is about 7.7%. When we look at that same metric for number 1 IR jobs, that conversion rate was about 12%. And when you think about that 12% conversion rate historically, it's about 50% what it was in the peak during the pandemic based on my personal data. Some other key trends are that the third quarter typically represents peak opportunity in the market. And then for a global look at IR, there's typically about 50 opportunities available for IROs in a given quarter. And then when you look at that same data for a number 1 IRO, you're seeing about 33 opportunities in a given quarter. And I think these last few metrics are what is most eye-opening to IROs, whether they're in a seat or unemployed looking for a job, because I don't think anyone believes that there's this much opportunity in the market in a given quarter. So let's get into the high-level trends again. So we're going to look at conversion rate here at a global level, all levels of IR. Our 2-year average was 7.7%. In 24, we were at 7.4, which was down from 8.2 in 2023. I diluted my search as I moved through my 2 years of unemployment. When you look at the number 1 IRO job metric, we were at 12% conversion rate for the 2 years average. The peak was in 2024 at 12.3, and we were slightly worse in 2023 at 11.5%. Now let's look at the historical trends based on my job search data. And what you can see is that our worst showing was in 2017, shortly after we entered the job market due to the acquisition of DFT data centers by Digital Realty Trust. And what we see is the peak in the market was about 21.4% during 2020, the pandemic year. And that's about twice what it is in today's rate. And I think this is where IROs, whether they're in a seat or not, are going to really resonate with this data here, that conversion rate to a conversation is so much lower in the market today than it has been 5 years ago. So let's get some perspective here that the universe of job applications I'm talking about in this data set is about a 402, and that represents about 18% of New York Stock Exchange listed companies and about 12% of NASDAQ listed companies. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about what our trends look like on a monthly basis at both the global and number 1 IR level. And then in the next section, we're going to drill down into that conversion rate and those trends. So let's start by looking at the global level. You can see that our applications grew considerably from 23 to 24. What you can see here is the market seems to peak in that August-September timeframe, and the market seems to ramp throughout the year from that March-April timeframe into the August-September timeframe. And what you can see here again is that we were averaging 17 applications or opportunities in a given month for the 2-year period. At the bottom right, when you look at it on a quarterly basis, there's about 50 applications available or opportunities available in a given quarter. And it's amazing when you see both the third quarter peaking well over 60 and the majority of 24 having well over 60 opportunities in the second and third quarter. I think in IROs looking for jobs at these levels would be surprised at this total. So now let's drill into what it looks like on a number 1 investor relations level. And again, applications grew considerably from 23 to 24. And what you see again is you see a shorter ramp, maybe from May to September, August, in terms of the data. And what was really interesting is that there was a trough in the market between October of 23 and February of 24, where there was not a lot of opportunity for a number 1 IRO. And when you look at the bottom right, on average, there's 33 opportunities for a number 1 IRO in a given quarter. And when you see the peaks at well above 40, anyone who's searching for a job, whether you're unemployed or in a seat looking at the IRO market, is going to be surprised or shocked that there seems to be this much opportunity in the market in a given quarter. So let's look at the conversion data during my 2-year job search. And we'll start with the global level. And what's interesting here is we peaked in the second quarter of 23, And our troughs were both in the third quarter of 23 and third quarter of 24, which is interesting because our trough periods coincided with the peak opportunity periods for an IRO looking for a job. And again, I think this 50 applications a quarter is surprisingly high to anyone that consumes this data. And the key caveat for both this data set and the number one IR job is that conversion rates do not correlate to the amount of applications in a given quarter. So let's look at the number one IRO market. Again, 33 applications a quarter. You've seen the peak periods are 40 and above. And again, we peaked out in the second quarter of 23 and saw a trough in both the third quarter of 23 and 24, which seemed to coincide with some of the peak opportunities in the market for number one searches. And I think the key here again is 33 applications in a quarter is surprisingly high. And as we move through our data sets for the first quarter of 25 and into the second quarter of 25, you're going to see some interesting trends relative to what we're showing for the 23 to 24 period. So I hope you enjoyed the data. I hope you get some value out of it. And thanks for watching.